Hey, welcome to The Process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is my series on ADP versus end of the season fantasy points, EOS. So it's preseason and end of season. And we are looking at ADP in a predictive way, question mark. And I'm going to start with quarterbacks. It's just get you going a little bit. I think it kind of lets you see what's happened in the past, right? We're all looking for that foundational bottom to start from each year. And here we go. This is part one. I'm looking 2015 to 22. Okay, so we've got a nice block of, what is that? Is that 8 years? 8 years of data? Is that it? Okay, so let's see what we can do here. And here we go. So, quarterback, end of the season fantasy points as a group. Okay, I'm looking as a group, not looking at the top 10, not looking at the top, just every quarterback that had any kind of activity. I throw them in. And I wanted to look at their preseason positional ADP. And I had converted that to, so it's fantasy points versus the percentile of the kind of the ADP, the ADP versus the percentile of the fantasy points. So the top would be 100% and so forth. So I graded each quarterback from each year. 2015, okay, starting here. 2022, I kind of tracked the, I guess this is the median or the, something like that. Yeah, I think. Average, median, something, I forgot. Hell, I don't remember what I did. Ate for breakfast. So here we go. This is certainly a trend. So 15, 16, 17, 18. And then all of a sudden, 19, 20, 21, 22, things became different. So I don't know if it was the new quarterback, coaches, by chance, but I suspect, and I probably didn't do the statistical comparison of the 15 to 18 versus 19 to 22. I guess I could do that. But for me, I think it's the pattern, the trend. I think we're in a higher quarterback situation. Did go down a little bit. Okay, if you look again, this is box and whisker. The box is about 66% of the population. And the whisker above is the top, what's it, top, let's see, 30, 33, so about the top 16, the bottom whisker's the bottom 16, or 16 and a half, I guess. So we see how compact or not. Some years, which is interesting, people don't really talk about that. Some years, like 2016, 2019, pretty close. Look at the whiskers, and the box is small, but other years like 2020, 2015, even 2021 and 22, it's a lot of variation, and the box is much bigger, so there's a lot more variation. So certainly, if drafting a quarterback put us in the small box, then you probably got a good chance of landing on a quarterback probably later in the draft. Having that wide of a box probably implies that's not kind of the opposite, that we would in fact not have a great chance of picking up that so-called late quarterback wonder here. Certainly last year was a lesson here that elite quarterback really made a difference in leagues. And just keep that in the back of your mind. So there's no reason to predict we won't continue to have that high variation. I will note that in the other lessons, I did mention 2022 was a little bit funky in that some of the metrics had declined, and I think we had some injuries in some older quarterbacks, and that kind of have changed the data a little bit. So just take this not as gospel at all, and you should never take any kind of trends or anything as gospel. If nothing else, what I'm trying to do is give you a foundation for you to do some research, you to chop that data wood and then get your fire. I'm just showing you what's gone on, and I'm going to be looking in best ball at least. Probably some of the higher quarterbacks are going to get my attention. I guess it's the same thing with the tight end, that if you miss out on elite, you're almost putting yourself in a streaming situation. With best ball, the advantage is, some of the so-called streamers, you just need 4 or 5 weeks of fairly good play to make them a good pick. So it's a little bit different than a one quarterback redraft. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind a little bit. So I thought this was kind of interesting here, what we're seeing, but it looks like the last 4 years were completely different than the preceding 4 years. Let's take a look at the actual end of the season fantasy points per preseason. So positional preseason ADP ranking metric number. So the top one, so this year it's Mahomes. In the previous years, if you look at the top 30 percentile, we can see that's all in the last 4 years. So you can see right away, if you just take the 8 years of data and highlight the top 30 percentile, it is clear, especially the last 3 years. Look at this, that things were really, really different. So I do make note of that, and just, be aware of that's going on. So it's kind of hard to try to, when you're looking at this data, is to say, I should include 15 to 18, because it looks like a completely different population. There is stats to test that hypothesis. I'm just, for my personal, what I'm doing this year, I'm not going to do that. But there are ways to try to figure out the differences, the variation. In other words, is there any indication there's certainly things were different in populations? By the 30 percentile green staining, I say, right now, I say yes. Okay. So, take a look at last year. If you didn't grab, top 7, you pretty much did not get a really elite one. You might have got lucky at the 15th and the 18th, but it was a lean season, 8th through the 13th, folks. And that was different than the year before a little bit. So that could have surprised me. Boy, we had a sucky 4th and 5th. So if you did the old, I'll take the top three strategy, or I'll, try to pick some streaming, that might have been as good as taking the fourth or the fifth. You didn't, I don't know how you could predict the sixth and the seventh would be it. I don't know. But anyway, if you look at the top 10, for instance, we've only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 30. So 2/3 of the time, let's say 3 years, you've hit pretty good. But last year was funky because, take a look, in the top 10, only half were in the good. But look at 21, 70%, 20, 22, 80% or something. It was, or both of them about 80%, I guess, if we look at the top 10. If you look at the top 12, then, so, 3, 3, and what is that? 6, 7. So double the miss rate last year. So that was a little bit. And again, I think this zone was the one where there was injuries and issues. Preseason you had predictions, but these guys let you down, and you didn't have that in the last few years. So just be aware of that. Right now, I'm thinking the top, quarterbacks there, Mahomes, Allen, and I don't know if Hurts was down in here at the end of but he certainly came in. I don't think he was down this far. I don't know the names of these. I probably should do the research on that. You guys can. Anyway, there it is. So right now, I think safe is you should get an elite quarterback. If you like your safety, I think the last few years have been pretty good in the top 3. Okay. And, even if you look at, say, the top 7, it hadn't been too bad. But if you're down in here last year, boy, you were, half everybody else. So you probably did not make it into the playoffs if it was one quarterback lead. Because you were having to make up that difference each week. And that's pretty hard to do. So right now, I'm leaning to getting the lead or trying to pick. And again, this is in best ball, not talking about redraft yet. So in best ball, I'm picking some elite, or I'm probably trying to grab one in this area and maybe one here to try to stream together. Probably going to have 3 at the end of the day. So I may even have another one deeper. Looking across and looking at all the data of the 8 years, and I did the high to low. If you look at, say, median end of the season fantasy points, it's pretty clear that 1, 2, 5, and 7 have been really strong. So the top 7 have tended to be strong. And even 8, look at 297. It's almost 300 here. Where it gets sad is about the 11th pick. It gets real sad. So it looks to me like the tendency is that waiting way late for your quarterback is a little bit risky. Certainly unless you're good, you've paid the price in the last couple of years. The years before, maybe it was different, right? The last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, things were different. And maybe that's what gave rise to these so-called hard and fast heuristical rules. People will try to fit last year's to this year, okay? Because it's easy, it's quick, it's a quick and dirty method. When you look at a grouping of data, some of that quick and dirty disappears, and that's what I like to do. So my takeaway is probably the top 7. I think maybe even the top 10, maybe. I'm not sure I want to wait beyond 10. I'm worried at 10. I'm getting worried at 10. I'm definitely panicked at 11 and 12. So you need, the data suggests you need to be above 10 and above. That's just kind of the heuristical rule I'm thinking about. I understand you can say, well, back in blah blah year, right? It's it's the old song, more drunks than doctors, so I'll drink, I'm not going to worry about it. I understand that, but there's some tricks to that kind of thinking, okay? Because you can always find exceptions. In fact, winners and exceptions are, highlighted, right? You don't read a book on how I lost $1 million, right? All you read is the book where the guy, I made $1 million. What you don't see, if you could take that one so-called, brilliant millionaire type and ask, okay, everybody that applied your method, I don't know, risk, whatever, options, day trade, whatever it is, and then say, okay, let me see the whole population of day traders in your kind of quadrant there. And you'll see there's a lot of non-survivors, right? There's a lot of graves out there. If you ignore the graves, then, it's, wow, this is very intriguing, this millionaire. And so that's why they sell books. It's not like, oh, I was, randomly, I'm a lucky fool, I'm going to write a book about it. That doesn't sell. There was 100 starting out and I was the lucky fool. Just by chance, I made $1 million, everybody else lost. That's not what sells, right? That we don't like that kind of story. Okay? We don't like the small fish story. We like the big fish. Everybody on the lake that day, caught minnows, but I got the record bass. Who do I want to hear, even though it's just by chance somebody caught the big fish. Okay, so I think you get that there. If you plot average and median, which is the red dots, the green dots, and you kind of do the orange and the green trend lines, median is suggesting that you can probably potentially go down to the 15th. Again, this is over 8 years, but you don't want to be past the 15th. And I think that's where the late quarterback goes. But I think if you look at the last 3 years, if we play, and I probably should have, but I didn't. I probably should have. I would suspect if you plotted the last 3-4 years, this trend would start dropping at 10 here. And I think I may have done that later. So we'll come back to that. But anyway, that's what this is supposedly telling us. And notice after the 7th pick, look at the decline. So when the last few years, I said, top 7. And then look at the decline. And if you really say this is the late quarterback, like, okay, I'm satisfied with this type of play here. That's in the last 8 years. I don't know how that stacks up in the last few years, last 4. Again, if we look and convert it to the top is 100, and you look at this data, it's pretty clear. Look at 7, you got 95%. You lose, you below 80% at the 9th pick. Okay, so somewhere between 7 and 9, you're getting pretty risky here. And, 90, 100, even 85, 90, 95. I mean, the data's pushing you to say you need to grab a top 7. So right now, I'm going to say, okay, that's what it's very suggestive. So if we look at failures and winners, so I took and stained the bottom 30% or the top 30%. Look at 2022, the 12th, 13th, 19th, 20th. Okay, I guess I'll move my frame of reference down. There we go. Some sadness. Look at 2021, only 2 extreme sad. In 2020, only 3. So pretty much the top 7, other than here, it hadn't been. So it's not just dire, right? I understand we're, not in the top 30, but last year, like I said, look at this string right here. This is the issue right here. And this is what's probably going to scare some people this year. It wouldn't surprise me, because people saw this in 2021. They probably weren't worried about here, and they got a big surprise. This year, they're probably going to be a lot more. I can imagine in Superflex, for instance, people are going to go crazy in the top 5, 6, 7. Because this is the year they're paying attention to. They forgot this year. They forgot that year. They saw this year. So I don't think 2023 is going to be as sad as this. I'm not sure we'll get this, but we certainly this is probably the basement here. This may be, the ceiling. So maybe somewhere in between. But I think in a 1 quarterback league, I'm probably going to have to grab top 6 or 7. And again, when I start talking my redraft strategy, I will plot what round the 7th quarterback is going. So I do try to understand how the quarterbacks are running out on average. And we'll talk about that. And if you're interested in how that affects in best ball, I actually discuss that in the FFPC best ball that I play in. I've actually mapped kind of the positional changes versus ADP. So you can kind of see what the predictions are. And so if you've got, I don't know, ESPN or whatever you play at, you can do the same kind of mapping scenario there. Okay. And I think, was it 23 minutes? I'm going to stop right here, and we will come back with another lesson next time. Woo woo.